Trump threatens, if Iran does not start talking seriously soon, it will not be pretty. The Ayatollah regime is collapsing, a significant blow to Iran's Revolutionary Guards. They have been left without commanders at sea, in the air, and on the ground. And a double Israeli elimination in Bandar Abbas. The IDF eliminated the commander of the Revolutionary Guards, Navy, and the head of the intelligence division of the Revolutionary Guards. Iran's missile array is under pressure from the Israeli Air Force. Iran is struggling to rebuild its capabilities. We will soon see American soldiers on Iranian soil. The United States is sending more forces to the Middle East. The agreement between Iran and the United States is on the way to blowing up. Could this bring the war to an end? Write to me what you think in the comments. And today, the Pentagon's deadly plan was revealed. We will bring you everything that we know. And the Revolutionary Guards in Iran announced that they are winning, and because of that, they have started recruiting 12-year-old children for this war. I am Mati Shoshani, bringing you the whole truth about what is happening here in Israel and everything that is heating up in our neighborhood, the Middle East. And we're closing out day 27 of Operation Roaring Lion, or by its American name, Epic Fury. In the last 24 hours, the Israeli Air Force has been striking Iran at a faster pace. The Israeli Air Force attacked cruise missile production facilities in Iran during the night. In addition, for the sixth time in the last 24 hours, the IDF has struck in Isfahan. The emphasis of the strikes in Iran has shifted from regime institutions to military infrastructure. After weeks of bombing besieged forces and security bodies in an attempt to undermine the regime, the center of gravity of the strikes has shifted, and the goal now is to block military recovery in the medium and long-term timeframes. And the Israeli revenge for the closure of the Strait of Hormuz has arrived. The Israeli Air Force struck in Bandar Abbas overnight, and with intelligence guidance from the IDF intelligence and the Navy Intelligence Department, Ali Raza Tangsiri, commander of the Revolutionary Guards Navy, and Behnam Rezai, head of the force's intelligence division, were both eliminated. The elimination of the commander of the Iranian Navy by the Air Force completes a significant and painful blow to the Iranian command structure, which has lost three major anchors for managing the war. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said that Ali Reza Tangsiri was directly responsible for the terrorist act of mining and blocking the Strait of Hormuz for shipping. In addition, over the last 24 hours, the Air Force destroyed weapons production sites in Tehran and central Iran. I hope this is a clear message from the IDF to the regime in Tehran. The IDF is taking them out one by one. The long arm of the IDF will reach all senior Iranian terror officials, said Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz. And by the way, I wanted to tell you that today I will bring you the full and exclusive story about the Launcher Hunters, the squad of pilots that struck the missile array that had been Iran's hope. All the information on how they know how to hunt Tehran's missiles in real time before a ton of explosives hits the Israeli home front. So stay with us until the very end today. Now back to the headlines. Trump warns Iran to show seriousness before it's too late. And meanwhile, thousands of American Marines are making their way to the Middle East. According to reports yesterday in the United States, the unit being transferred to our region previously served the American military in combat in Afghanistan and in operations in Baghdad. At the same time, the Americans continue moving heavy equipment into this area. US President Donald Trump is attacking NATO and intensifying his messages towards Iran. They were completely destroyed militarily. They are begging to reach an agreement. At the same time, in Washington, they are preparing broad escalation scenarios if the negotiations fail. So, on one hand, Trump is talking about negotiations and even a ceasefire. But on the other hand, we're seeing classified briefings that point to the possibility of a ground military move soon on Iranian soil. And in addition, Trump released an angry statement in which he said, "We will always remember who did not help against Iran." Trump is angrily announcing that he will not forget the countries that chose not to assist in the campaign against Iran. it seems that he is sending the message to the countries of Europe. Admiral Cooper, who heads the American command, said that 92% of the largest vessels in the Iranian Navy have been sunk. They are not sailing, and my operational assessment is that they have now lost the ability to significantly project power and influence at sea. The American network PBS published some of the American demands. It appears that the United States is demanding a halt to uranium enrichment, the dismantling of nuclear facilities, restrictions on the missile program, and the abandonment of its proxies in the Middle East. In return, sanctions relief and a civilian nuclear program. Iran has rejected the American proposal to end the fighting and said it would end it only on its own terms. In Tehran, they set 5 conditions, accused Washington of deception, and made clear the strikes will continue until there is a response. On top of everything, the Iranians also threatened to kidnap soldiers over any ground invasion of their territory. And here in Israel, they are noticing a change in the pattern of fire. The Israeli security system has identified that Iran is directing launches towards areas where restrictions have been eased in an attempt to harm daily life. A clear demand from the United Arab Emirates. The demand is to dismantle Iran's capabilities and not settle for a compromise. Saudi Arabia is also pushing for escalation against Iran. At the moment, it appears that if Iran does not agree to severe restrictions on its missile, drone, and nuclear programs, the leadership of Saudi Arabia and the Emirates has signaled that it would supply military escalation in order to apply pressure that would bring concessions at the negotiation table. Now, Iran wants to include Lebanon in any ceasefire agreement. Regional sources, speaking anonymously, said that Tehran informed mediators as early as mid-March that it wanted an agreement that would also stop Israeli attacks on the Lebanese armed organization Hezbollah. And meanwhile in Beirut, the Lebanese official who led the expulsion of Iran's ambassador, is now absorbing the fury of the Hezbollah terror organization. The terror organization defines unprecedented decision of the Lebanese foreign minister as surrender to outside dictates, and claims that he is paving the way for placing Lebanon under Israeli patronage. While the government in Beirut is trying to cut the umbilical cord from Tehran, Hezbollah is threatening a dangerous internal division and demanding immediately cancel this reckless step. And the Houthis came back with their flip-flops. And of course, they started threatening in a statement that said, Iran is winning, and if necessary, we too will join. Look guys, the Houthi rebels have so far remained outside the fighting in Iran and the axis of Shiite militias. But they are announcing that if necessary, they will be ready to take action. Well, we have a lot ahead of us. Let's dive into the details. A lot is ahead of us again, so let's dive in. I'm Mati Shoshani, and Yair Pinto, who's usually with me, is off today. So, as you can see, I'm presenting to you boots on the ground, the news report that brings you the whole truth about what is happening in Israel. This is day 27 of the war against the Revolutionary Guards in Iran, the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. In just a second before we begin, I want to call on you to keep spreading the truth. Share our content with as many people as possible. And most importantly, do not forget to click the subscribe button. And if you're interested in seeing life in Israel under war through our eyes, just search for me, Mati Shoshani, or Yair Pinto, my colleague, on social media and join us. Now guys, I want to take a few minutes to really break down what's actually happening here and to answer the very, very difficult and important question of whether or not President Trump has lost patience. Has he lost patience with what's happening in the Middle East? Has he lost patience with the Iranian army? Does he think we're going somewhere else? He's said some very, very interesting things, and I want to really break them down. So first of all, I want to tell you this. President Trump, although he seems sometimes capricious and as if he's pulling ideas out of the cuff on the fly, which he is sometimes, has come to this war well prepared. Him and the US forces that lead this attack, this assault on the evil Iranian regime, knew exactly what they were doing. And President Trump has not lost patience. President Trump wants a resolution. We've heard leaks from the Washington Post and others that said that Trump has been telling his closest advisors in recent days that he needs to end this war sometime soon. This is for two main reasons. One, the financial element of this war. The cost of the war and the cost of this war on the global economy is stacking up quickly. And Trump went into this war with the expectation, the hope of ending it in a 4 to 6 week time frame. And I have to tell you guys, it is possible that we will see that happen. It's not guaranteed, but it is definitely a possibility. This gets more interesting. There is pressure mounting within the US political system to end this war, claiming that the US was dragged into it, that it was done in a way that is unconstitutional, or that there is no chance of winning. People point at the fact that Trump has changed the goal of the war. It started with toppling the Iranian regime. It continued with completely removing the military force, and now it is open up the Strait of Hormuz. All of these goals are the same goal. All of them mean the same thing practically on the ground. They mean removing the Iranian regime from power. They mean removing their tentacles from the Strait of Hormuz. They mean clearly that they will be able to travel safely. This is the Gulf states and the United States vessels through the Strait of Hormuz and not be bothered by the Iranian regime. And I want to tell you one more thing. Some of the headlines will tell you that Prime Minister Netanyahu is urging the Israeli Air Force to strike in Iran as quickly as possible before Trump pulls the plug out of this campaign. Where does this come from? From a relatively well-informed piece of history, where in the previous attempt, or the previous war, Operation Midnight Hammer, or Am Kelavi, that took place in June of 2025, Israel was caught sort of mid-air or mid-flight to Iran by a ceasefire agreement that was imposed unilaterally by President Trump back then. And here we are now, standing today, wondering whether President Trump is about to move on to the next thing, or whether this war will wrap up in the way that it should. And I'm going to tell you what I perceive. I believe this war is going to end the right way. I believe that President Trump has a plan. I believe that between him, his advisors, Pete Hegseth, who I've met several times personally, and others in the government, we will see, and I need to say this clearly, we will see the Strait of Hormuz open up again. We'll see the U.S. Army and the U.S. armed forces be able to push the Iranian influence back into the borders of Iran, and we will see the Iranian regime dramatically weakened, as it should be. But there's more here. The options that are on the table for further weakening Iran, they are days or possibly maximum a week away for President Trump. If the Iranians think that President Trump has done everything that is possible, everything that is in the, let's call it, toolkit of the Iranian regime to weaken, to scare, to jeopardize the control of the Ayatollahs over Iran, you are wrong. There are several substantial tools that he can use. Let me just name a couple of them. One, put boots on the ground on the island of Khalg or Khalg, depending on how you want to pronounce that letter. Put boots on the ground, and those guys are almost here. The 82nd Airborne, some expeditionary forces from the Marines, they are on their way to this region to put boots on the ground if necessary. There's more. You can fully cut off Iranian trade, oil ships, the ships coming from China bringing good into Iran to help keep the machine of war that is the Iranian regime running. Those can be stopped too. And one last thing, the smuggling routes in northern Iran, they too can be cut off. And they can be cut off quickly, they can be cut off easily by the Iranian regime if it needs to. So is President Trump running out of patience? No, he's not. He is still very much in the game. He's still very much committed to a clear solution. He is very much able to influence and affect the regime in Iran and make sure that this war ends the way it should. Everyone's biggest fear is that the Iranians will remain in power without being weakened while they stand over the Strait of Hormuz with a sword in their hand, waiting to cut off global trade once more. The clear objective of this war is to make sure that Iran doesn't dare do that again. Are we sure the Iranian regime will be removed? We're not. Are we sure there will be a new government in Iran? We are not sure of that. What we are sure of is that Trump has the power, that the American armed forces have the power, definitely together with Israel, to strongly impact the Iranian economy, to strongly weaken the Ayatollah regime, and to do so in a way that will show them unequivocally that we have the upper hand and they need to communicate, they need to work together with us. Keep spreading the truth, keep subscribing and watching TBN Israel. And guys, if you want to know firsthand of what's happening here in Israel, make sure to follow Mati Shoshani, that's me, Yair Pinto on social media, so you can see the war in Israel through our eyes. Now for our shout out today, Meir Panim. Let me tell you about these people. Meir Panim's branch in Dimona was hit. After a direct missile strike in the area, the building suffered severe structural damage and is now completely unsafe to use. What was once a place of warmth, of dignity, and daily meals is now filled with broken glass, with debris and instability. More than 470 residents were displaced in this attack, and thousands of homes were affected. And right in the middle of it, Meir Panim, a lifeline for so many, was deeply impacted. Inside the building, ceilings are at risk of collapsing, electrical and plumbing systems have been destroyed, entire sections of the facility need to be rebuilt from the ground up, and yet the meals haven't stopped. Even without a building, even in crisis, the team continues to provide food every single day to those who depend on it. But emergency operations are not enough. We need to rebuild, not just to restore what was lost, but to bring this place back to life. A fully functioning, dignified space where people can once again receive meals with respect, with consistency and care. Now, government support may cover part of the damage, but it will not restore the heart of this place. That depends on you. If you want to stand with the people of Dimona, if you want to help rebuild the place of hope, we invite you to give today. So visit bless-israel.org and be part of restoring Meir Panim, because together we can rebuild. Let's get back to the news. At 3 a.m. in Bandar Abbas, the Israeli Air Force settled the score with one of the most dangerous men in the Iranian regime. Ali Reza Tangsiri, commander of the Revolutionary Guards Navy, was eliminated together with the head of the force's intelligence division, Benham Rezai, in a precise strike on the Naval Command compound. Hours later, as sirens were again heard in Israel and launches from Lebanon continued in the north, it became clear that this night was not just another night in this war, but a night marking a shift in the center of pressure. The question now is not only how many more targets Israel and the United States can hit, but whether Iran is still capable of managing this campaign like an organized military, or whether it is already fighting from attrition, from improvisation and pressure. Because the elimination in Bandar Abbas does not stand alone. It completes a much broader blow to the command skeleton of the Revolutionary Guards. The commander of the Guards Air Force was already eliminated in the opening strike. The commander of the ground forces was eliminated as well. And now, the man who managed the naval arena has also been taken off the board. The meaning, guys, is clear. The organization that is supposed to manage the fighting against Israel, the United States, the shipping lanes, and the regional militias, has lost its 3 main field commanders in the air, on land, and at sea. This is not just a symbolic hit. It is an erosion of operational memory, of the chain of approvals, of the ability to coordinate between branches, and of experience accumulated over years. Tangsiri was far more than a naval commander. Under him, the Revolutionary Guards Navy was transformed from a secondary arm into an aggressive, fast, and unpredictable strike force. He pushed rapid force buildup, acquired thousands of weapons, placed emphasis on long-range missiles and advanced naval mining, and was responsible for a series of attacks on oil tankers and merchant ships. He directly threatened freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz and advanced deep cooperation with the Houthis around Bab el-Mandab. From Israel's perspective, his elimination is also a direct response to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and also a message: anyone who tries to choke the world's energy routes becomes a target. Defense Minister Israel Katz put it in the sharpest possible way. The IDF will hunt senior Iranian terror officials one by one. But in Bandar Abbas, Israel dealt with the head, across the rest of Iran, it is now operating against the body. Over the last 24 hours, more than 60 fighter jets completed several waves of strikes, in which more than 150 munitions were dropped on sites used to produce weapons in Tehran and central Iran. One of the focal points was Parchin, the region's main facility, or the regime's main facility, for producing missiles and defense systems. There, a site for producing defense systems was attacked, along with a plant for casting and filling warheads with explosives, a site for mixing and casting engines for ballistic missile development, and a site producing critical missile components based on solid fuel engines. During the night, additional strikes were completed in Isfahan, including a production site belonging to the Quds Force, a major military industry facility for producing defense systems and additional weapons production sites. Here it is important to understand the shift. For weeks now, a significant part of the effort was directed against regime institutions, besieged forces, security bodies, and command centers, in an attempt to undermine Tehran's internal stability. Now the center of gravity has moved. Instead of only destabilizing the regime, Israel is now striking Iran's ability to rebuild itself in the medium and long-term timeframes. That means hitting not only the launcher that goes out to fire, but the factory that produces the warheads, the facility that mixes the fuel, the tunnel from which the launcher emerges, and the industry that reproduces what has already been destroyed. This is a war of industrial attrition, not only a war of elimination. And that brings us to the story now standing at the heart of the entire arena, the pursuit of Iran's missile array. For Tehran, the ballistic missiles were the great hope. This was the strategic arm that was supposed to deter, to hurt the Israeli home front, and to impose political conditions. For the Air Force, this became an ongoing, almost obsessive manhunt after every launcher, every tunnel opening, and every launch squad. In this effort, drones, fighter jets, real-time intelligence, fuel planning, munitions planning, and precise ground guidance all work together. The objective is simple, to state and extremely difficult to execute. Hit the launcher in the few seconds between its emergence from hiding and the launch itself. The Iranians do not leave the launchers out in the open. The trucks carrying the missiles are usually hidden in facilities dug into mountains. Only when a launch order is received do they come out, raise the missile, fire, and try to return inside before anyone detects them. That is a window of only a few minutes, sometimes less. Now, drone operators who described the mission spoke of a chase in which you see from above a missile standing upright on the launcher, and you know that within seconds it can be on its way to Israel, carrying a ton of explosives. That's not hyperbole, by the way. It really means a ton. This isn't a metaphor. That is the distance between striking the launcher and another explosion in the Israeli rear. In the first 24 days of the operation, nearly 5,000 strikes were carried out against Iran's missile program. More than 700 targets were hit, and around 335 launchers, about 70% of the launch capability, were put out of use. And yet, by the beginning of the week, around 500 ballistic missiles had still been launched at Israel in 339 waves of attack. Those numbers explain both things at once: the scale of the Israeli damage and the fact that the threat is still here. Now, Israel is not reducing the launchers to zero, but it is shrinking Iran's ability to produce barrages on the scale it had planned. In other words, Israel is not shutting the faucet off completely, but it is breaking the main pipe. And meanwhile, the Iranians are learning too. In the Israeli system, they say Iran has drawn lessons. Their launch times have shortened. They're trying to reopen blocked tunnel exits, to create alternative exits, to disperse launchers, and to disappear faster. That's exactly why the Israeli effort has moved to another layer, not only hunting the launcher at the decisive moment, but sealing the tunnels, bombing production sites, and breaking the entire value chain. If the launcher does not come out, if the fuel is not produced, if the warhead is not filled, and if the command center is not functioning, the quantity and pace go down. The Israeli home front feels that as well. Despite the broad hit to the missile array, Iran continues to launch, but the firing pattern has to change. In recent days, Israel has identified that the Iranians are aiming more and more at areas where restrictions have been eased, in an attempt to strike specifically at the return of normal life. The Gaza envelope, Eilat, the southern Negev, areas that were not previously a central target, and also attempts to hit the Ben Gurion airport area. In other words, less of an effort only to spread destruction, more of an effort to break the rhythm of life, the economy, and civilian movement. One of the clearest examples was the strike in Dimona, where a ballistic missile carrying about 500 kilograms, let's say that's about 1,200 pounds, of explosives was documented. The blast caused heavy destruction. 59 people were evacuated to Soroka Hospital in Beersheba, including 2 in a serious condition. And one of the wounded was a 12-year-old child. Even when the array is under pressure, every missile that gets through is still capable of causing very heavy damage. That is exactly where the main line of understanding for Day 27 runs. On the one hand, the Iranian regime is taking hard blows in production, command at sea, and in the air. On the other hand, it is still managing to fire. So anyone looking for a heading or headline saying Iran has been defeated is still too early. Anyone trying to understand whether Iran has been dramatically weakened, the answer is yes, very much so. But this is still not total collapse. This is a war between a system that has been deeply damaged and a residual capability that is still enough to fire, to threaten, and to harass. I'm just making sure that I'm still centered in the frame. We're doing well. Good job, me. And it does not end only with the military. Inside Iran itself, the signs of internal erosion are growing stronger. Reports from within the Iranian system point to low morale, to absenteeism, and desertions, especially among ballistic missile units and lower ranks of the Revolutionary Guards and the police. The reason is twofold. First of all, the targeted strikes have turned any movement to launch sites into a mission that feels like signing a death sentence. Secondly, there is a growing feeling on the ground that there is no clear leadership. When senior commanders are eliminated, communication from headquarters breaks down, and soldiers feel they are operating without stable command. Added to that is severe economic hardship, a shortage of cash, difficulty in buying food, difficulty paying bills, and a feeling that the lower ranks are serving as a human shield for senior officials hiding deep underground. Now, at this point comes one of the most disturbing details of this day. The Revolutionary Guards announced that they are lowering the recruitment age for war support activity to the age of 12. Officially, this is presented as assistance in logistics roles. But in practice, when a regime begins pulling 12 and 13-year-old children into an emergency framework, that is not evidence of strength. It is evidence of a manpower crisis, of pressure, and of a desire to project mass mobilization even as the ranks are eroding. And in Iran, they tried to frame it as willingness of young people who want to give for the nation. But the message going out is completely different. The regime understands that the adult forces are worn down, disappearing or refusing to report. And here we need to stop for just 1 second, because this is exactly your moment to stay with us. If you want to get the full picture, not just the headline, but also how these moves actually work, hit like now, subscribe to this channel, share this report, and write us in the comments what you think. Is Iran really on the way to an agreement? Or is it simply buying time until the next round? And now, let's return to the broader arena. Because alongside the Israeli pressure, the United States is raising the tone against Iran on almost every single front. That's right. President Donald Trump today again warned Tehran to start talking seriously before it's too late, and added that if that happens, it will not be pretty. He also sent a clear political message to Europe and NATO when he said he would not forget the countries that did not assist in the campaign against Iran. In other words, Trump is talking about negotiations, but at the same time building public, regional, and military leverage. That is exactly the duality now managing Washington. On one side, a desire to reach an arrangement. On the other, a visible preparation for the possibility that the arrangements may fail. And that preparation is real. Thousands of American Marines are making their way to the Middle East. Forces from the 82nd Airborne Division are also preparing for deployment. Marine units skilled in amphibious assault landings are already in the area, and warships carrying thousands of troops are approaching. And in Washington, 4 central scenarios have been examined in recent hours. An invasion or blockade of Hog Island, the center of Iran's oil exports, a move against Larak Island, which helps Iran establish control over the Strait of Hormuz, a takeover of Abu Musa and 2 additional small islands, or the blocking and seizure of ships exporting Iranian oil. At the very same time, there's also a deeper option, a limited or broader ground operation to reach and enrich uranium, or alternatively, an extensive bombing campaign against nuclear facilities. Now, in Iran, they clearly recognize this picture, and that is why they're already preparing for the possibility of an American move on Khalg Island. According to the reports, the Iranians have reinforced the island with troops, air defense systems, anti-personnel, and anti-armor mines, and traps designed precisely for a scenario of an amphibious landing by American Marines. In other words, the Pentagon is examining scenarios, and the Iranians are building the killing field. No less important than that, in Tehran they are already speaking openly about another scenario, the kidnapping of American soldiers. In Iranian rhetoric, this is presented as an opportunity to humiliate Washington, to create leverage, and turn an American presence on Iranian soil from a show of strength into a political burden. Alongside the military track, the diplomatic track is also in full motion. But right now, it looks like a minefield in its own right. The United States has presented sweeping demands: a halt to uranium enrichment, the destruction of nuclear facilities, restrictions on the missile program, and the abandonment of Iran's proxies in the Middle East. And in return, sanctions relief and the option of civilian nuclear activity were offered. Iran, for its part, not only rejected the document, but submitted its own official response. In that response, Tehran demanded an end to the fighting on its own terms, guarantees that strikes would not be renewed, compensation for war damages, an end to fighting on all fronts and among all resistance groups, and recognition of its right to control the Strait of Hormuz. From their perspective, this is not just a ceasefire. It is a demand to redesign all the rules of the game in the region. That is also why the Iranians' demand to include Lebanon in any agreement is not a side detail. From Tehran's point of view, the campaign cannot and will not end without ensuring that pressure on Hezbollah is stopped as well. This is its way of inserting its proxies directly into the end formula. And exactly here, another front opens. Quiet but deep. Lebanon itself. In Beirut, Lebanese Foreign Minister Youssef Raji, who led the cancellation of the appointments of Iran's new ambassador, is now facing intense fury from Hezbollah. In the organization, they claim this is a surrender to outside dictates, placing Lebanon under American-Israeli patronage, and a move that endangers national unity. But behind that outburst lies one clear fact. Part of the Lebanese leadership is trying to cut the umbilical cord to Tehran, and Hezbollah understands very well what that means. There is also no patience in the Gulf right now for a soft arrangement. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates may not be publicly calling for an expanded regional war, but they also don't want an ending that allows Iran to emerge from this campaign without a strategic price. Their concern is that if a ceasefire is reached without dismantling, or at least dramatically reducing the missile, drone, and nuclear programs, the message will be that it is possible to block Hormuz, to threaten energy infrastructure, and to survive. That's why the Gulf states are pushing for a decisive ending, whether through diplomacy or military pressure or both. Not immediately, not recklessly, but also not through a half-baked agreement. And in Yemen, the Houthis are once again reminding everyone that they are not gone. Until now, they have remained relatively outside the round, certainly less than Hezbollah and the Iraqi militias. But today, they already declared that Iran is winning, in their words, and that if necessary, they will join. The operational translation of such a threat is not only more launches, it is also a threat to another shipping route, to Bab el-Mandab, to maritime transport, and to the possibility of opening yet another regional headache, precisely as Washington and Tehran are playing chess around Hormuz. And alongside all of this, the fighting in Lebanon continues. More than 30 Hezbollah terrorists have been eliminated in recent days, around 10 of them from the Radwan force, and IDF troops continue to destroy infrastructure and operate in villages in southern Lebanon. The price continues as well. Staff Sergeant Uri Greenberg, a fighter in the Golani Reconnaissance Unit, fell in a battle in southern Lebanon. This arena is not disconnected from the war against Iran. On the contrary, it is part of the way Tehran is trying to keep the fire alive on several borders at once, and also part of the way Israel is seeking to deny its regional pressure rings. So what's happening here on day 27 of the Roaring Lion War, of epic fury, whatever you choose to call it, the real picture is more complex than any headline. Iran has lost senior commanders in the air, the sea, and on the land. Its missile array is under heavy pressure. Production plants, tunnels, warheads, solid fuel engines, and defense sites are all being hit one after the other. Now, at the same time, the regime is trying to project resilience. It's recruiting children. It's threatening to kidnap American soldiers. It's insisting on control over Hormuz and demanding to include Lebanon in every agreement. The United States is talking about negotiations, but sending forces. Israel hears about a possible arrangement, but accelerates its strikes in order to reach it from a position of strength. The coming days will determine whether this accumulating pressure bends Tehran or pushes it into an even more desperate and dangerous move. And the question now hanging over this entire arena is simple. Who will break first? Iran's chain of command or the nerves of the entire Middle East? I was Mati Shoshani. Look for me and Yair Pinto, my colleague, on social media to see the war without filters, straight through our eyes. And give a like, and don't forget to press the subscribe button so you stay tuned to the truth in real time and never miss an episode of Boots on the Ground. Now, guys, if you've hung around for this long, first of all, 5 points to you all. Secondly, we need to pray for what's happening in Israel. The news cannot be understood, and by the way, scripture can't be understood without a life of prayer and contemplation about what God is doing here in this land, in this part of the world, right now as we speak. So join me in praying for our men and women in uniform, both Israeli and American, who are fighting in the ground, the skies, the sea of this region, fight against the enemy, the nemesis of our day, of my lifetime at least, the Iranian regime. Pray for the supernatural protection of the people of Israel. Pray for people around the world to care for what's happening here and take action. Pray for the hearts and mind of our leaders, both Trump and Netanyahu, to continue fighting this just war and do so under incredible international pressure. And above all, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and the people of this land. God bless you all, and I'll see you on the next show. Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.